My name is Antoine Watts, and I'm a reenactor with the 1st Rhode Island Regiment of Foot. Today I'm a musician and civilian observer, and I've always loved reenacting for as long as I can remember. What more can I say? I mean, I've loved the movies about it, I've loved reading books about it, and now I get a chance to actually live. What more can I say? I love it.
Goofy little thing like you're being played.
Well, my name is Joe Beckton. I'm a member of the 1st Rhode Island Revolutionary War Reenactors. Today I'm dressed out as a Continental Marine because it's November 10th, the Marine Corps birthday. So, had to come out to Fort Mifflin to be involved in the event on November 10th and to represent the Marines. Why do I do it? Well, actually, I tell a story that you don't often hear, the story of African Americans in the Revolution. I really feel like if I didn't come out to tell my story, that there'd be no one else to tell it. And there'd be stories that wouldn't be told. You know, sometimes people say, well, Africans weren't in the Revolution. And I'm here to say, well, yes, we were. We served in the Marines. 3 Africans served in the Continental Marines during the American Revolution. Some people say, well, the Revolution wasn't about freedom. Well, the Revolution was about freedom. Lord Dunsmore, Virginia, with his Dunsmore's proclamation promised freedom to all the Africans who would fight against America for the king. Some people say Africans didn't know how to read, but of course Africans knew how to read. Did you ever hear of Phyllis Wheatley and her famous poetry? The most famous African poetess from the era of the Revolution. So these are the kinds of stories that I come out to tell. These are the kinds of misconceptions that I want to correct, and this is why I do it.
I represent the Light Company of the 84th Regiment of Foot, the Royal Highland Emigrants. This regiment was raised in the colonies in 1775 as a provincial regiment, was given line status in 1778, was given the number 84th, and our uniform is based on a model of the 42nd Highlanders who were over here. We were to be uniformed and equipped as they are, and my sergeant is coming, so you'll have to excuse me for a moment.
Fuck.
Sergeant.
You ready?
Aye.
Good enough?
Aye.
You won't kill yourself, will you, lad? No. Because you're wearing a bunch of the king's clothing.
Anything that you can think of that you'd like him to go over?
No. You have water?
I need to fill up.
Okay, go grab water right now.
Where can I fill up?
Sinks in the bathroom.
Sinks in the bathroom.
While you're going over there?
Sort of have to tuck it under, but... Want to leave the musket here, Chad? You can do that a little quicker. But, post haste on that fill up, and then we'll get going.
Okay. As I said, we represent the 84th Regiment of Foot, the Royal Highland Emigrants, giving you the background on when they were raised. The Light Company fought of the 2nd Battalion. You can tell we're the 2nd Battalion because our buttons are grouped in 2s. The Light Company of the 2nd Battalion, as far as we can tell, fought mostly in the South with Cornwallis, Georgia, South Carolina, parts of North Carolina, as part of a composite light infantry regiment that was made up of light infantry companies from regiments all over the colonies. Light infantry means we don't fight in the standard linear formations, we fight in pairs, use cover, take advantage of trees, lie on our bellies, kneel, do a lot more running, picking individual targets, harassing fire on the Continental Line, and forcing them to deploy so that our battalion regiments can take care of them from there.
What do you do for a living?
I am a history teacher at Loch Raven High School in Baltimore County.
Why do you like to do
This is probably the most authentic teaching you can get. It's about as hands-on as it gets.
Hi, my name is Rob Morris. I'm commander of the 84th Regiment of Foot Royal Highland Emigrants. Our unit is a Highland unit formed in the colonies by a gentleman named Alan McLean, who's a lieutenant colonel in the British Army. He formed the unit in 1775 in Canada. It fought at Quebec and saved Canada for the Empire. The 2nd Battalion was formed in North Carolina out of the Bonnie Prince Charlie refugees and their children, and under a guy named Major John Small. He recruited those men, dragged them to New York, trained them there, and then that unit was companied out all over the Army. You can tell we're members of the 2nd Battalion because you see our buttons are double spaced on our coats. This blue facing indicates that the 84th Regiment is a member of the regular army, the regular military establishment. Other units which are not part of the regular army have different color facings, like buff or white. I'm an officer. You can tell that I'm an officer because I have a sash, and I'm an officer on duty because I have a gorget. The gorget is a throwback to medieval armor. It's the last vestige of it that officers wear, and they wore it all through the 20th century, actually up to, say, 1945. I have a basket-hilted broadsword. It's customary for a Highland officer to wear. There is no specific badge of rank to distinguish me from a lieutenant or a captain or a general even, but I happen to be a lieutenant. In regular life, I'm a lawyer. I'm the vice president of a law firm in Philadelphia. Our unit contains lawyers from Washington, D.C. It has computer programmers. It has many history teachers at the highest level of that profession, and others.
My name is Richard Miller, and I portray Private MacDonald with the 84th Royal Highland Emigrants. It was a light infantry Highland unit, loyalist, meaning we were in the colonies when the war broke out. This is my wife, Rachel.
Hi, and I portray Mrs. MacDonald. We sort of portray a couple who was displaced by the war, and I joined up with the unit to do cooking and cleaning and earn my keep, and there's a measure of safety being in with a bunch of soldiers. So.
That is a tankard. Is that a tankard?
It is a tankard, and it could have had ale in it. Ale, grog. They used what they had, and any citrus fruits were made into juice and gave them the vitamin C to prevent scurvy.
Okay, well, we would have been representative of people moving into North Carolina, which had a very high Scottish population, and a lot of them took part in the French and Indian War. Afterwards, when the Revolutionary War came along, Alan McLean came down through into North Carolina, got with Major MacDonald, and he was rounding up Highlanders in the area to go fight in the Revolutionary War. So these were Highlanders that had been in the country for a while, had been here 10, 15, 20 years, and had settled, and had sided on the side of the Crown for various reasons.
Sir, I have my camera running. Sir, did you serve in Vietnam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, where did you serve, sir?
Da Nang, Hill 34.
What is your name, sir?
Patrick.
Patrick, I'm going to put this on YouTube. I just want to find out who you are to give you recognition.
Thank you.
How many years, sir?
3 years. In country 70-71.
Did you see Bob Hope?
I didn't go.
You didn't?
No. Too many people in one place. A lot of problems.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
Good day, my name is Chuck Faust, and we're members of the Continental Line's Pennsylvania State Rifle Regiment, aka the Donegal Township Rifles. The members you see here represent people who lived on the frontier settlements who mustered in 1775 at the call of Congress to muster riflemen for the aid of the siege around Boston. But the unit, over the years of the Revolution, actually formed different companies under the Continental Line, different regiments. Originally it was the Pennsylvania State Rifle Regiment, then became the Pennsylvania State Regiment. And then when they saw their downfall at Monmouth in 1778, they morphed, or actually reformed, into the 2nd Pennsylvania and then the 13th Pennsylvania Regiment of the Continental Line. So the members here have different impressions of that particular regiment of the Continental Line. We're here today for the 235th anniversary of the siege at Fort Mifflin near Philadelphia. This fort was used at that time as a fortification for the Delaware River to protect the city. And during that time in 1777, the British actually had a siege on this fort before they actually took over the city of Philadelphia. Howe was in the city, but he couldn't resupply the city that he was occupying without bringing up the naval fleet. So this fort was keeping the naval fleet from entering Philadelphia. So this was the last ditch effort by the Continentals to keep the British from actually supplying Philadelphia during that siege and that occupation.
But between this and Fort Mercer, which was on the other side of the Delaware, they were in a position here, even though the British took Philadelphia, this installation held out because it couldn't be taken by just the infantry. It was like cannon that they brought with them. And the fleet, the British fleet, couldn't get within range of this because of the fortifications and the guns that were here. If they tried to get on the far side of the river, Mercer would get at them. If they came this side, then we were able to get at them. So they couldn't really take this. And basically, the place when it got to siege, they ran out of supplies. And the only way they were able to get out to get back across the Delaware to Fort Mercer was to evacuate the fort and leave the flag flying. Since the simplest thing is that when you gave up a fort, you took the colors down. So rather than surrender your men, they actually were able to sneak out of here because they couldn't hold it. Leaving the flag up, the British had the idea that they were still manning the cannons here and they couldn't get in. That gave them enough of time to slip across the Delaware and fall in with Fort Mercer and to leave here. One of the most important guys that were in here was a guy that wrote the best-known diary, Yankee Doodle Dandy, Joseph Plum Martin. He was one of the defenders here, and he was able to get out with the rest of the garrison across the river.
It took about a month for the British fleet actually to subdue the fort. So they held out to the very end. And there were actual riflemen that were here, which is why we're here representing the rifle regiments of the Continental Army.
Now, can you go into your weapons?
Sure. What most of us are carrying are the long rifles of the day. Unlike the smoothbore muskets which you see this gentleman carry here, they have a rifling inside which allows the ball to spin when it leaves the barrel, and the length and the rifling gives you distance and accuracy. Unlike the smoothbore, which is just a pipe, there's no grooves or lands in that particular barrel. The round could be dropped down easily because it didn't need to be required to be seated into the lands. So you can load and fire this about 4 times a minute, but your accuracy is less and the distance is less, essentially about 50 feet, 50 yards, 50 to 75 yards. After that, you lose, well, there really is no accuracy. You could point and shoot it at something, but you're not guaranteed to hit it. But with the long rifles that were made by the gunsmithing industry here in Pennsylvania, these guns were perfected for distance and accuracy, so most of us are carrying that type of firearm.
You figure most of the movements, if they wanted to take this fort by siege with their infantry, they'd have to get over the walls. Well, the problem was even though the smoothbores didn't have the range, riflemen on these parapets had ranges out to 600 yards, which you could shoot people down way before they got anywhere near the wall. So that's one of the reasons why it held out as long as it did, because they didn't want to try to get too close because they were just suffering casualties long range with the rifles on these walls here. But eventually, all the powder and ball you can have doesn't do anything if you don't have food and supplies.
Yep. And they actually they ran out of cannonballs here. Actually, the artillery actually ran out of. They had gunpowder, but they didn't have enough shot to fire back. And at one point, they were actually scooping up the cannons that were being fired into the fort. They would actually run around with buckets that were sized to fit the artillery pieces here. And if the shot that was rolling across the parade grounds here was scooped up, and if it fit in the bucket, they hauled them back over to the artillery crew to use to fire back at the enemy. So that's really what caused the fort to fall, running out of supplies. I mean, it took about a month.